breaker 19, this here's a rubber duck. You got a copy on me, Big Ben, come on.
Gonna find my baby, gonna hold her tight, gonna grab some afternoon.
Some of these songs were everywhere. You heard them on the radio. You knew every word. Then, somehow, they disappeared. But you didn't forget them. Here are 10 forgotten one-hit wonders of the 1970s that deserve another listen.
I rented my apartment on a Monday at 1, singing do lolly lolly.
Number 10. Telephone Man, Mary Wilson. Imagine getting a hit song from a telephone number.
Started moving in it on a Tuesday at 2, singing do lolly.
In 1977, Mary Wilson turned the telephone into one of the strangest characters ever to appear on American pop radio. Telephone Man wasn't a typical love song. It was playful, theatrical, and deliberately quirky.
Wednesday at 3, I called the phone company, singing, hey baby, put a phone in.
Wilson played the role almost like a character in a comedy sketch, creating a song that sounded completely different from the polished, soft rock dominating radio at the time.
Hey baby, I'm your telephone man, you just show me where you wanted it.
And somehow, it worked. Telephone Man climbed to number 18 on the Billboard Hot 100. For a brief moment, Mary Wilson had something most artists spend their entire careers chasing: a national hit.
Hey baby, I'm your telephone man. Can you believe that? And then he says,
But the novelty that made the song memorable also made it difficult to follow. Wilson continued performing and recording, but nothing else came close to the same level of mainstream success.
my heart began a thumping and my mind began to fly, and I knew I wasn't dealing with.
And that's why the song is perfect for this countdown. You may hear it today and immediately think, I remember this. But then comes the harder question. Who was the telephone man?
I got it with the buzz and I got it with the ring, and when you told me what, hey lolly lolly, hey lolly lolly, just doing my thing.
73 men sailed up from the San Francisco Bay.
Number 9. Ride Captain Ride, Blues Image. Here's one of the strangest hit songs of 1970. Because the song was practically written under pressure, and its most famous number came from a piano.
Rolled off of their ship, and here's what they had to say.
Ride Captain Ride came from Blues Image, a Tampa rock band that had been working for years before their breakthrough. The song tells a mysterious story about a captain and a crew sailing away on an unknown journey.
73 men sailed up from the San Francisco Bay.
But the story wasn't based on some ancient legend. It was essentially imagination. And the famous number in the lyrics, 73 men, had an unexpectedly simple origin.
We can laugh our lives away and be free once more.
Keyboardist Frank "Skip" Conte was playing a Fender Rhodes electric piano with 73 keys. That number became the starting point.
73 men sailing off to history.
The song took off. Ride Captain Ride reached number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1970, becoming the band's only top 40 hit.
Ride, Captain, ride upon your mystery ship.
And then the story changed. Blues Image didn't become a lasting household name. The band disappeared. The song didn't. It simply became one of those records that people recognize, even when they can't remember who made it.
On your way to a world that others might have made. Be amazed at the face you have here on your trip. Hey girl, I met you.
Number 8. The Rapper, The Jaggers. Before hip-hop, there was The Rapper. And no, this isn't what you think. The Jaggers released the song in 1970, and its title sounds almost bizarre when you hear it today.
You'll find him anywhere, on a bus, in a bar, in a grocery.
But the song wasn't about modern rap. It was a catchy, horn-driven pop soul record built around a very different kind of rapper, a smooth-talking man trying to charm his way into someone's life. The record became a genuine American hit. It climbed into the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. For the Jaggers, this was the moment everything seemed possible. They had the sound, they had the hit, they had national exposure, but they never turned that breakthrough into a lasting string of major records. And that's what makes The Rapper such an interesting forgotten hit. The title sounds like it belongs to another era. The music sounds unmistakably early 1970s. And the band? For most listeners today, almost completely forgotten. Sometimes the strangest thing about a one-hit wonder isn't that the song disappeared, it's that the song was once everywhere.
Come up to my place for some coffee or tea. Rap, they call him the rapper.
In the heat of a summer night, in the land of the dollar bill.
Number 7. The Night Chicago Died, Paper Lace. This song reached number 1 in America, but almost none of it actually happened.
When the town of Chicago died.
The Night Chicago Died was recorded by the British group Paper Lace in 1974. The song tells a dramatic story about Chicago police battling Al Capone's gang during a violent night.
When a man named Al Capone tried to make that town his own.
It sounds like history. It feels like history, but it's fiction.
I heard a pray the night Chicago died.
The songwriters Peter Callender and Mitch Murray created the story using the mythology surrounding Chicago's gangster era. The song reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 1 week.
Brother, what a night it really was. Brother, what I thought it really was. Glory be.
And here's the strange part. The writers had never even been to Chicago when they wrote it. They were essentially building their version of Chicago from gangster movies and popular mythology. Yet American radio loved it.
I heard a pray the night Chicago died.
The song had everything: danger, a dramatic narrative, a memorable chorus, and just enough historical flavor to make listeners wonder how much of it was true.
And the sound of the battle rang.
Today, Paper Lace is rarely mentioned alongside the great 1970s bands, but their song once sat at the top of the American charts, a fictional night that became a very real hit.
Then the door burst open wide, and my daddy stepped inside. The night Chicago died.
Party the other night.
Number 6. Disco Duck, Rick Dees and his cast of idiots. Imagine a novelty record becoming number 1 in America. That's exactly what happened with Disco Duck.
Moving my feet to the disco beat.
Released in 1976 by radio personality Rick Dees and his fictional cast of performers, the song was deliberately ridiculous. It combined the disco craze with a duck impression.
I was on the dance floor acting strange.
It shouldn't have worked, and yet millions of people bought it. The song reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Look at me, I'm the disco duck.
For a brief moment, Rick Dees wasn't just a radio personality. He was the voice behind one of the biggest novelty hits in America. And there's something fascinating about songs like this. They capture a moment that can't really be recreated. Disco Duck could only have happened in the 1970s. Disco was exploding. Novelty records still had room on mainstream radio, and Americans were willing to take a ridiculous idea and turn it into a national phenomenon. Today, the song can sound almost impossible to believe, but that's precisely why it belongs here. Because forgotten music isn't always serious music. Sometimes, It's a duck.
Now I told you so, you ought to know.
Number 5. Magnet and Steel, Walter Egan. You know this song, but do you remember Walter Egan? That's the perfect question behind Magnet and Steel.
It takes some time for a feeling to grow.
Released in 1978, the song became Walter Egan's signature hit, reaching number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 and spending 22 weeks on the American chart.
You're so close now, I can't let you go.
Its sound was pure late 1970s California soft rock, smooth, bright, effortless.
My secrets to reveal.
But listen closely, and there's another reason the record feels so familiar. Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham of Fleetwood Mac sang background vocals. Buckingham also helped produce the record alongside Egan and Richard Dashute.
For you are a magnet and I am steel.
Suddenly, the song becomes more than a forgotten soft rock hit. It's a small piece of the Fleetwood Mac world hiding in plain sight. Egan had his biggest moment with Magnet and Steel, but he never turned that success into a long run of mainstream hits.
You're a woman who's lost to your song.
So the song remained famous, while the man behind it slowly disappeared from the public memory. And that's one of the great mysteries of one-hit wonders. Sometimes America remembers the melody, but forgets the person who created it.
Show the way I feel. With you I'm not shy. For you are a magnet and I am steel. We get it almost every night.
Number 4. Dancing in the Moonlight, King Harvest. Some songs don't sound old, they sound like summer. Dancing in the Moonlight is one of them.
When that moon gets big and bright, it's supernatural.
King Harvest released the song in the early 1970s, and its gentle keyboard melody and relaxed rhythm made it completely different from the heavier rock records surrounding it.
They don't bark, they don't bite, they keep things loose, they keep that alive.
The song eventually reached number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1973, but the band's story was almost as unusual as the song. King Harvest was formed in Paris, and the group broke up only about 6 months after forming.
Dancing in the moonlight, everybody's feeling warm and
Then something unexpected happened. The single had already been sitting around for roughly a year before it was picked up and released internationally. And suddenly, a band that had essentially fallen apart had a hit. That's the kind of timing you can't plan.
we like our bone, we never fight. You can't dance and stay up.
Dancing in the Moonlight became a permanent part of 1970s radio culture. King Harvest didn't. And perhaps that's why the song feels bigger than the group.
Everybody here is out of sight. They don't bark and they don't.
You don't need to remember the band. You only need to hear that opening melody. And suddenly, you're back in the summer.
Everybody was dancing in the moonlight. Everybody's dancing in the moonlight. Everybody's feeling.
Do the hustle. Do the hustle.
Number 3. The Hustle, Van McCoy and the Soul City Symphony. In 1975, America didn't just listen to a song. America learned a dance. The Hustle by Van McCoy became one of the defining sounds of the disco era.
Do the hustle. Do the hustle.
The song reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and helped turn the hustle dance into a national craze. But Van McCoy's story is surprisingly bittersweet. He was an accomplished songwriter, producer, arranger, and musician long before the hustle. Yet the song that made him famous also became the song that defined him. For many listeners, Van McCoy means one thing, that unmistakable instrumental groove. And that's a strange fate. A musician can spend decades developing a career, and history can reduce it to 3 minutes. But listen again today. The strings, the rhythm, that instantly recognizable melody. It doesn't sound like a forgotten record. It sounds like the 1970s, walking back through the door.
Gonna find my baby, gonna hold her tight, gonna grab some afternoon.
Number 2, Afternoon Delight, Starland Vocal Band. This might be the most deceptive song on the entire list. It sounds innocent, it looks innocent, and then you listen to the lyrics again.
Motto's always been when it's right, why wait until the middle of a cold dark night?
Afternoon Delight became a #1 Billboard Hot 100 hit in 1976, spending 2 weeks at the top and 20 weeks on the chart.
And we know the night is always gonna be here anyway.
The song was built around the tight harmonies of Starland Vocal Band, and its title had a surprisingly innocent beginning. Bill Danoff got the phrase from a menu at Clyde's restaurant in Washington, D.C.
Thinking of you's working up my appetite. Looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
But the finished lyrics? Not innocent at all. The song used cheerful harmonies and sunny production to disguise a very suggestive subject. That contrast was part of its magic.
Afternoon delight.
America sang along. Radio stations played it constantly, and Starland Vocal Band became overnight stars. They even won 2 Grammy Awards.
Started out this morning feeling so polite, I always thought a fish could not be.
But they couldn't recreate the phenomenon. One giant hit, then the spotlight moved on. Today, Afternoon Delight remains instantly recognizable. The band behind it, not nearly as much. And that's exactly what makes it a one-hit wonder worth remembering.
Sky rockets in flight. Afternoon delight.
Breaker 19, this here's a rubber duck. You got a copy on me, Big Ben, come on.
Number 1, Convoy, C.W. McCall. What if a song became so big that it helped create a movie? That's what happened with Convoy.
Yeah, it's a big 10-4 there, Big Ben. Yeah, we definitely got the front door, good buddy, mercy.
Released in 1975, C.W. McCall's Convoy wasn't simply a pop song. It was a snapshot of an American obsession, CB radio, and the open road.
It was the dark of the moon on the 6th of June in the Kenworth pulling logs.
The song told the story through trucker slang, radio chatter, nicknames, and the fantasy of a giant convoy moving across the country. And suddenly, people everywhere were saying things like 10-4, Breaker 19. The record reached #1 on both the Billboard Country and Pop charts in January 1976. But its impact went beyond the charts. The song helped fuel the CB radio craze and became such a cultural phenomenon that it inspired the 1978 film Convoy, directed by Sam Peckinpah. For a moment, C.W. McCall wasn't just a recording artist. He was part of American culture.
I says, calling old truck, says, here's the duck, we about to go a-hunting bear.
And yet today, how often do you hear Convoy on mainstream radio? That's the strange journey of a forgotten hit.
Here's a duck. Now, you want to back off them hogs? 10-4, about 5 miles.
A song can reach #1, become part of everyday American language, influence movies, define an era, and still slowly disappear from the radio until someone plays it again. And suddenly, you remember exactly why America loved it.
Well, we shot the line, we went for broke with 1,000 screaming trucks and 11 long-haired friends.
We got a mighty convoy rocking through the night. Yeah, we got a mighty.
They had the hit. Then the spotlight moved on. Which one did you recognize first? And what forgotten one-hit wonder should we bring back next? Tell me the song in the comments, because your forgotten favorite might be our next countdown.